Today we're going to show you how to build a 4-foot by 4-foot brooder for under 30 bucks that you can use to raise poultry or waterfowl on your homestead. Stick around. Today on the Mindful Homestead, we're going to be in the garage because it's raining outside. So we're out here in the garage today because we need to build a brooder. Now, we already have a brooder. We've got our egg layers in there right now, some ISA browns and some white leghorns. Those chicks are doing pretty well. They've been in there now for about 5 weeks and they're going to be going outside pretty soon. And we've got a super secret project going on in the incubator upstairs that we're working on with another YouTuber. And while I can't say exactly what's going on there, we will need space in a brooder when those eggs hatch, if those eggs hatch. So what I need to do today is build a separate brooder from the one that we have those chickens in for whatever hatches out of those new eggs. I'm trying to be really careful about not saying what it is so I don't spoil the surprise. If you are watching this video at a later date, what I'll do is I will put a link to that video in the corner up here if it's already been released. If it hasn't already been released, you won't see a link up there. But once that video comes out, I'll come back to this video and I'll put a link up in the corner. Being that we already have one brooder that I built a while ago that takes up a lot of space, it's very overbuilt. So the design I'm going to be building today is something I've seen from a bunch of other channels here on YouTube, and it's about as simple as it gets, to the point where no matter what your level of skills are in the wood shop, this is something that you should be able to make. So if you're getting chicks and you want to build a brooder for them, maybe you've got a handsaw, maybe you've got a circular saw, this is something that you can build very easily. So let's get on to the build and I'll show you how we're doing it. So the tools that you're going to need for this project are as follows. You're going to need a circular saw. You certainly don't need a circular saw. You can use a handsaw, you can use a jigsaw if you want, but a circular saw is going to make this a lot quicker and easier. You're going to need a tape measure. You're going to need a pen or pencil, some sort of marking device, and you're going to need a couple clamps. I have a really large C-clamp here and then a pretty small C-clamp here. Virtually clamps of any size will fit as long as they can clamp down onto something that's 2 inches thick. I'm using a large one and a small one because it's literally just what was sitting out on my bench and they'll work just fine. So your materials for this project are extremely simple and inexpensive. You're going to need one sheet of 1/2-inch plywood. One sheet of plywood is a 4-foot by 8-foot section. Now, what you see in front of me is that 4x8 sheet already cut down into 2-foot by 4-foot pieces. Simply put, when I happened to pop into the store to get this piece of plywood, I went to one of your big box stores, your home improvement box stores out there, and I wasn't in my truck, I was in Jackie's car. So I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood in there. So what I actually had the store do, and they'll do this for you for free, was cut it down into 4 2-foot by 4-foot sections. And it's as easy as them throwing the sheet into their saw that they have. It's actually a vertical mounted track saw, which is pretty cool. It slides on rails. And it took the guy probably about, 3-4 minutes to cut this thing down for me, and they do it for free. Makes it much more manageable. You can fit it in your car if you don't have room for a full sheet of plywood. So no shame in doing it. If you didn't have this sheet cut down for you, it's as easy as making 3 cuts. You're just going to go 2 feet from the end of the sheet of plywood, make a cut, go another 2 feet, make a cut, and then go another 2 feet and make a cut. So after you do that, whether you have the store cut it or you cut it yourself, you're going to end up with 4 pieces that are 4 feet wide by 2 feet across. And that's where we're going to start this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take these pieces and we're going to cut slots in them so that they can slide into each other and essentially interlock and hold themselves together that way. The advantage to this design is that when you're done with the brooder, you can easily take this thing apart and store it just like this in a corner of your garage or wherever you have space for it. You can even put it in a closet in your house. So it's a really space-saving, efficient design when you're not using it. And when you do need it, it opens up to a perfect size brooder. So this brooder design does not have a bottom to it. And what you can do, we've done it with other chicks before, is we simply take a tarp that you can get from Harbor Freight or any hardware store, and we just fold that tarp up so it matches the bottom of the brooder, and then we put the brooder on top of it. And then the nice thing about it is when you're done, you can pull the chicks out of the brooder, you can put them wherever they're gonna go, whether it's into a chicken tractor or into its own dedicated coop, and then you lift the brooder frame off the top of it, and all you have to do is drag that tarp outside. It's gonna have all its wood chips in it. You can bring it right over your compost, dump it into there, and then just hose that tarp down, and it's good to go for the next time you need it. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna line these things up, much like you would take a piece of paper that you're about to staple and kind of tap it on the desk before you stapled the corner of it so all the sheets were aligned. You're gonna wanna do the same thing with these, and then we're gonna clamp them together once we have that done. So using my little workbench here, which is pretty tiny, it's just my mobile workbench, I'm gonna line these things up, put the clamps on them, and then we'll come right back to it. So we're gonna measure from the right-hand side first. We're gonna go 2 inches in, make a mark, and then we're gonna go 2.5 inches in and make a mark. Then you're gonna come up a little ways and you're gonna do the same thing. 2 inches in, 2.5 inches in. Verify. And then from the bottom edge, you're gonna line up. And you're gonna come up 1 foot and draw a line there. So now you're just gonna take a straight edge. You're gonna match up your lines up to that 1 foot mark. So now that we've got our areas marked that we're gonna cut out, we're gonna come in with our circular saw, and starting along these 2 outside lines, we're essentially just gonna cut out that middle there. Now you might make 2 passes and just knock out the middles. You might make 3 or 4 passes and knock out the middle. Really what you're trying to do is just get as much out as possible, and then we can come back and clean it up. We've got that side done. We're going to come over to the other side now. Once you have all your cuts made, you can take your clamps off. You're not going to need them anymore. You can use a chisel for this part if you want, but I find that just a standard flathead screwdriver works pretty well. It's as easy as just putting it in and then twisting. And you just want to make sure anything else that's in there just gets twisted right out. That's it. Now this technique of using the screwdriver to knock out these pieces of wood that we don't want, it's not going to give you the most finished perfect edge on the inside here. If you really wanted to, you could come back with a file or a rasp or take care of it. But for our purposes, which are just going to be brooding chicks, it's not the end of the world to have a little bit of a sharp edge in there. It's actually going to lock the 2 pieces together because you'll have jagged edge going against jagged edge. And it'll be just fine for what we need it for. So I'm not too worried about it. All right, so now comes the time where we're going to put this thing together. The first thing you're going to do is grab a sheet and you're going to hold it with the slots facing up. The next thing you're going to do is grab another sheet and you're going to position that one with the slots facing down. And you're just going to take those 2 and lock them together. Now it might take a little bit of finesse, but once you get them to slide together, they should lock in pretty securely to one another. If for some reason you have an excessive gap at the bottom when you're trying to slide these two pieces together, you may need to go back and extend the slots that you cut just a little bit. Okay, so now that you've got your first two pieces put together, you're gonna grab your next piece and you're gonna come to the other side. The idea is that you don't want these things fitting super loose and sloppy. You want them to be a little bit snug going together, that way they don't come apart easily on you. Can just go together like this. And just like that, you've now got yourself a 4-foot by 4-foot brooder that you can use for chickens, ducks, goslings, turkeys. Keep in mind that when you set this thing up for real, you are going to want to have that tarp underneath it. As always, if you guys have any questions, hit us up in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to share this video with somebody that could use it if you know somebody that's going to be raising chicks or ducklings or whatever. Thanks. Have a great day.